of the world's fastest growing economies are in Africa. And by 2050, 1 in every 4 people on Earth will be African. Increasingly, global investors, manufacturers, innovators, and policymakers are looking to Africa not merely as a continent of future promise, but as the next frontier of global growth and prosperity. While we may not take full advantage of the previous 3 great waves of global transformation, we have a historic moment and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not just to be part of, but to lead the next transformation. We have positioned Kenya as one of the nations that will define Africa's economic rise. Fourth, and perhaps most profoundly, this conversation is potent because the time has come to fulfill not only the political and governance promise of our Constitution, but also its equally compelling promise of development, national transformation, and shared prosperity. Fellow citizens, the Constitution envisages both a democratic and a wealthy and prosperous nation. Democracy allows us to organize power, protect liberties, and govern ourselves. Through our democratic institutions, our laws and policy reforms, we have steadily transformed that constitutional principle into a proudly democratic national culture. The next chapter, what these constitutional guarantees should mean in practice. What should an education system worthy of our constitutional promise look like? What should define accessible and adequate housing for every Kenyan? What kind of health system is required to secure the highest attainable standard of health as is provided for in the Constitution? How do we ensure that no Kenyan experiences the indignity of hunger and that every family has access to adequate food of acceptable quality? How do we guarantee universal access to clean and safe water, meaningful social protection, and the opportunity for every citizen to live a life of dignity? Above all, what measurable outcomes should demonstrate that we are truly giving practical effect to these economic and social rights as contained in our Constitution? Equally, we have not defined with sufficient clarity what patriotism, equality, social justice, and sustainable development should demand of us as government, as institutions, leaders, or citizens. Yet, these constitutional aspirations cannot fulfill themselves. We must, as a nation, collectively define the standards by which they should be measured and establish a common national development charter for their realization. Until we do so, our development and progress will remain subject to the ebb and flow of political expediency, changing priorities, competing interpretations, and fluid guesswork. A national development charter for the attainment of these noble constitutional imperatives cannot be designed by politicians alone, nor by any single institution, profession, or interest group. It must be shaped by the people of Kenya themselves through an open, inclusive, and honest national conversation. For the Constitution belongs to the people, and so too must the vision that gives it practical expression. They demand the wisdom of our farmers and workers, the ingenuity of our entrepreneurs and innovators, the experience of our professionals and scholars, the moral leadership of our faith communities, the energy of our young people, and the participation of every patriotic citizen who believes in Kenya's future. Such a development charter will succeed when anchored on strong institutions, institutions that enable rather than obstruct, that solve problems rather than multiply, that encourage enterprise rather than frustrate, and that make it easier for people to work, invest, innovate, build, and create wealth. Great nations, fellow citizens, are never built by chance. They are built by design, by discipline, and by deliberate, focused national purpose. Ours should be no exception. National development must never be left to chance or short-term politics. It must be guided by a shared national vision that endures beyond administrations and election cycles. A combination of the robust democratic society we have built and a well-crafted national development charter anchored on the economic and social rights enshrined in the Constitution is the potent ingredient necessary for the quantum leap that will make up for past missed opportunities and take us into the first world nation that we rightfully should be. Fellow citizens, Article 3 of our Constitution places a solemn obligation upon every Kenyan to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution. Every Kenyan. That duty extends beyond merely safeguarding its provisions. It obligates each one of us to build a broad national consensus on the destiny of our republic. The future of Kenya is too important to be left to politicians alone. It must be imagined, shaped, and built by each one and all of us. Patriotism, therefore, is not only measured by what we say about our country. It is also measured by what we contribute to it. The national framework for realizing the aspirations in our Constitution, we will have settled the question of our destiny. Thereafter, the true contest of democracy should be about who has the best ideas, the soundest policies, and the best capability to take us there faster, more efficiently, and more inclusively. That is the political competition our nation deserves. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not a theoretical discourse. The decisions we make today will determine whether our Constitution becomes the greatest instrument of our national transformation in our history or the greatest opportunity we missed. The defining task of our generation, therefore, is to forge a shared national development charter that translates constitutional aspirations into deliberate action, measurable progress, and lasting national transformation. This is how constitutional ideals become possibilities. This is how rights become opportunities. This is how aspirations become achievement. And this is how prosperity becomes lived reality. We must not merely state what our Constitution says. We must fulfill its highest purpose. Fellow citizens, this is the conversation I invite our nation to have. It is not a conversation about producing another government document. It is about forging a new national consensus on the country we intend to become and the standards by which we shall measure our progress. It is about translating constitutional ideals into measurable development outcomes, outcomes into better lives, and better lives into national transformation and shared prosperity. If the defining achievement of those who came before us was to give Kenya a constitution worthy of our aspirations, then the defining responsibility of our generation is to build a nation worthy of that constitution. Over the past several months, I have engaged and sought the counsel of current and former national leaders, of political leaders, scholars, business leaders, faith leaders, professionals, civil society, grassroots representatives, and most importantly, young Kenyans from every part of our republic. Those interactions reinforced one conviction above all: a vision worthy of guiding Kenya for the next generation cannot be written by government. It cannot be crafted by a handful of experts, however distinguished they may be. Nor can it emerge from a single institution or political formation. It must be forged through a genuinely people-driven, citizen-centered, and future-focused national process. One that draws upon the collective wisdom, experience, imagination, and aspirations of the Kenyan people, while remaining open to the very best ideas the world has to offer. It was in that spirit that I invited Professor Hiroyuki Hino, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, and their distinguished colleagues to begin examining Kenya's future beyond the Vision 2030. Last week, I had the honor of receiving their proposals on strategic guidelines for Kenya's long-term national transformation. The thrust of their proposal is both ambitious but also achievable. That Kenya can become a prosperous, high-income, industrialized, and globally competitive nation within one generation, provided we remain united in purpose, disciplined in execution, and unwavering in our commitment to long-term national transformation. These proposals provide the foundation for a much broader national conversation, a conversation that now belongs not to government, not to the authors of that report, but to every Kenyan. Fellow citizens, somewhere in Kenya tonight is a child too young to understand this address. Some may never remember Vision 2030. Others may never remember even this conversation, but they will live in the Kenya we choose to build. That is why this landmark national conversation is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It is about all of us and also the generations that will inherit the republic we will leave behind. Our Constitution places public participation at the very heart of governance. It is therefore not merely my desire, but my constitutional duty to ensure that the national vision, which succeeds Vision 2030, is shaped through an inclusive, transparent, people-driven, and genuinely national process. Accordingly, on Wednesday, the 12th of August, 2026, we shall formally launch a national conversation on Kenya's future beyond Vision 2030, the most consequential exercise in national reflection and public participation since the promulgation of our Constitution in 2010. We shall bring together every institution of our republic, every county and every generation, leaders from political parties, the private sector, workers' organizations, faith communities, universities, professional associations, innovators, civil society, our creative industry, and above all, our young people will be at the center. In 2010, we gave ourselves a constitution worthy of our dreams. The task of our generation is to build a nation worthy of that constitution. We have secured the foundations of our democracy. Let us now secure the foundations of our prosperity. Fulfill not only the letter of the Constitution, but its highest purpose. Let us rise together, right? That next chapter of our republic. Bless you all. Bless Kenya. And I thank you.